Welcome to Here Comes the Boom Football Edition. We've got Nick Roush joining us to talk some Kentucky football transfer portal. Nick, finally got you on the show. Thanks for coming.
We are portaling harder than anybody's ever portaled. Just ready to portal our way to the portal and talk a little portal today.
Yeah. What's the over-under on times you're going to mention portal on this show? What would you bet?
We're hammering the over. We're hammering the over. It's going to be a good day. When you asked, you said, "Hey, we need to do one of these." I was like, "All right, sweet. Let's rip it." We've got a weekend under our belts. Let's talk about what happened. Maybe not necessarily what happened and recapping it, but we can talk about the commits and then go through the big board, right? Because we have an idea of who Kentucky wants at certain positions. Uh-oh. Did I lose you, Jacob? Oh wait, did I lose his mic? Are you there? Oh no, I hope I didn't lose you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, there we go.
I turned off the mic. If I sound good.
There we go. Yeah, you just turned off the mic. Jacob, there's this thing in the showbiz, you have to turn the microphone on to be able to talk to it.
The microphone was on, but it's been having issues for weeks, so we're putting it away. We'll figure it out later.
Speaking of the ladybug, it's still here, folks. Still here. That's got to be a good sign. That's got to be a good sign. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, and I hear that when ladybugs follow you, it's good luck. So hopefully that's good luck for Will Stein and his transfer portal efforts. But Jacob, 5 guys, 5 commitments. 2 of them you were like talking to as they were happening. It's been chaos. So
yeah.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about Colton Price and Hassan Sykes and kind of how all of that unfolded.
Yeah, I'll start with Colton Price because he was really one of the first guys we found out was going to be visiting on that first day. Was it Friday, which was 3 years ago at this point?
Yep.
He had some other schools that he was talking to, was planning a few other visits to some big-time schools. I think Alabama was one of those. He had South Carolina and Ole Miss were some of the other schools that he was talking to. But I was talking to him while he was on the visit a little bit, while he's DMing me and saying, like, the odds are looking good. He said if the visit goes well, I'm going to be a Wildcat. He said that even before he got on campus. So the plan was if things went right, he was going to be a Wildcat. And as we've all seen, things went well. And yeah, so they beat out some big-time schools to get him, but it really felt like Kentucky from the get-go.
Yeah, 3-year starter at Texas. I don't know what that streak is, but I want to say
at Baylor.
Yeah, sorry. Baylor is in Texas, though. But 13 plus 12 is 25 plus 6, 31 straight starts, it looks like, for the Bears. So pretty good, adding some valuable experience to the interior of the Kentucky offensive line. The first offensive commit. That's one thing that I think's been a little fascinating, Jacob, is that everybody thinks of Will Stein in this offense, but it's been Bateman and the defense who have really attacked it early on and locked up some commitments.
Yeah, and it's been a little bit odd with that first day because they were supposed to have a few different O-linemen on campus in addition to Price, but you know how the portal works. I just put an update on KS Board about one target from Auburn that still hasn't entered, and so it's really forced them to prioritize the defensive side. But yeah, they have had some big time offensive players on campus.
But they got Sykes. Sykes was one where we thought things were going towards Illinois. That was what the predictions were saying. But I don't know what Jay Bateman is selling, but it sounds pretty good because people are buying.
Yeah, it's really Alan Brown. He deserves a lot of credit. He was the guy that led that recruitment for Sykes, and I asked Sykes what was the deciding factor. He said, "Alan Brown has a plan for me development-wise. The vision they have for him in the program were big parts of that, and he's got 2 years left of eligibility." And I was literally on the phone with him while he was announcing his decision. That was a pretty crazy experience while that was all going down.
Yeah. Just one of the many crazy things that happens in the portal. One that wasn't crazy, dramatic at all. Tavian Wallace, he basically showed up ready to put on the jersey, and within a couple hours, it committed. Waited to Saturday to announce that he was the first to pop. I've been a big fan of his for a long time, so that was a significant pickup. A guy who's got 3 years of eligibility remaining with former blue chip athletes, so that was a significant pickup. Along with Antonio O'Berry, which you just had an article go up on KSR Plus, where it's actually a defensive backs coach who created the connection that got O'Berry to Kentucky.
Yeah, well, his former coach at Gardner-Webb, Ty Holder, is now Kentucky's assistant defensive backs coach, and he told O'Berry told me that while he was visiting Ohio State the day before his Kentucky visit, Holder was texting him throughout the whole visit, telling him, got to commit to Kentucky. So once he got on Kentucky's campus, he already had that connection, and it happened pretty quickly after that. He said they talk every day, and they're super tight.
If you are unfamiliar with Ty Holder, he was the one who was cryptic tweeting right before the Sykes announcement. So I like the energy Holder's bringing. I don't know anything about him, but he's clearly bringing some juice on the recruiting front. The one final addition that we hadn't discussed yet, Ahmad Bro. This is another where you're thinking, oh, Joe Sloan, he might get some LSU offensive guys. But instead, it's Bro, the defensive lineman, the defensive tackle who played as a true freshman at LSU, has a lot of reps under his belt, 2 years of eligibility remaining, adding some explosiveness, I think, to that interior defensive line because he came to LSU as an edge and put on like 40 pounds. So he's got a big frame that he added to it, and it has some SEC experience to rotate in the interior of the defensive line.
Yeah, that was a really nice addition. A lot of SEC experience. I think his mom might have broken that he was visiting. She put out a tweet. She's been real active on Twitter, hyping her son up. So that was an exciting commitment. I do want to add something on. You mentioned Tavian Wallace. I talked to him last night, and we're going to have a story with him on KSR Plus. But Coach Bateman, he's coming up a lot in these conversations with these transfers. He's playing a huge role in these recruitments. But I thought it was fun. Tavian said that he got to campus around 5 o'clock, met with Coach Stein, and by 9 o'clock he was committed. So he made his decision quick. He obviously announced it later, but it did not take long for Kentucky to get that one done.
No, not at all. Not at all. So what's moving forward, right? Like this is what people want to talk about. I guess the best way to do it is just go through position by position, and we can start with the big one, the one that everybody's talking about, Sam Leavitt. I don't think I need to repeat everything that's happened to this point because we've said it, we've written about it 100 times. But basically, the visit goes well. He has a Texas Tech visit lined up, but that doesn't happen because Brendan Sorsby ultimately leaves LSU to tell the folks in Lubbock, like, I'm coming to West Texas. So that leaves LSU still needing a quarterback. I think the part that, we learned last night that Leavitt has a visit planned for LSU for Tuesday. But I think the more interesting developments are what we've learned about Kentucky's quarterback race this morning, Mr. Polacheck.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of different NIL numbers. I think that there was a previous number of $4.1 million for a Kentucky offer to Sam Leavitt. And based on what I've heard, the number has risen from there for Kentucky's offer to Sam Leavitt. So I think there's a lot of people out there assuming that, all right, he's on LSU's campus. LSU has obviously a lot of football funding, and if they want to get this done, they can get this done. But I think they're going to have to go pretty high in that NIL number to get this done. I think that Kentucky has a very competitive offer on the table. That's not to say that LSU won't end up being the higher bid. I mean, it is LSU at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I do think that Kentucky, from an strictly NIL standpoint, is in a good spot.
The part that I think is encouraging is just that big picture wise, because you shared that on KS Board this morning, and it goes to a conversation I had with somebody who's in the mix that kind of reiterated that point. But going into this, there's a lot of people worried about, does Kentucky got the money to get it done, right? Because Stein was at Oregon, Nike money, Phil Knight money. He gets asked about it. during his intro press conference. Mitch Barnhart got asked about it, and that's when he just kind of went off on his enough tirade and everything. Because there is some real, and I think it's deserved, just worry, like, where does Kentucky stand? And I think the reason why those are legitimate concerns is because, A, nobody shares anything, right, except when they're bragging about it. And a lot of schools, when they brought coaches back, were saying, hey, we're going to have $10 million on top of our rev share to spend. So it's like, well, where does Kentucky stand? It's clear if you're going after Sam Leavitt that you have enough in the coffers to go after Sam Leavitt, right? Like, Will Stein's not going to waste his time if he doesn't think that he can be competitive in a bidding war with the deepest pockets of college football.
Going off of that, Sam Leavitt isn't going to hear out Kentucky if he doesn't think they can be competitive NIL-wise.
Exactly. So now there's more layers to this, obviously, and part of it is for a time, a lot of people assumed that if Trinidad Chambliss got a waiver, he would end up at LSU. Well, it's looking like he might get the waiver, but if he does, he's staying at Ole Miss. So what does that mean? Well, there are two dominoes, right? The one is who Ole Miss was going after, and the other is, well, is LSU going after anybody else? And Matt Jones said today on KSR that Ty Simpson is a guy that LSU really likes. Pete Thamel reported that Simpson's undecided about his future. He doesn't know if he's going to go portaling, if he's going to go to the draft. But that's out there. Making it, I think it's something that Steve Wiltfong said too at one point, Jacob, that Kentucky's made it clear he's their top option, where that's not the case at those other schools. I think that kind of backs it up, right? That LSU likes Leavitt, but he's not their guy. The other domino, though, that this is just something to consider. Like, we aren't reporting anything. I don't know if there's been any connections, but Ole Miss was also going after Deuce Knight. If they're getting Chambliss back, Deuce Knight is a very fun, like that's a fun portal quarterback that could end up being a second option if Leavitt falls through for Kentucky. He was a late steal that Hugh Freeze flipped from Notre Dame, blue chip All-American type. Was third, true freshman, but they started him in that Mercer game. And Jacob, have you seen the stats from that game? They're really fun.
I haven't.
I have to look this up. It was 15 of 20 for around 200 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and then 170 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. Now, it's Mercer, it's a SoCon game, but he put up some big numbers. We're not saying that Kentucky is definitely going to be involved, but I think it is worth noting that, in this game of dominoes, musical chairs, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. That's kind of where we're at today. And is it fair to say, Jacob, if anybody has a big picture takeaway from this, it's that this is going to be a process, and it's one Kentucky could lose, but they are at least going to stay in the fight until the final round arrives?
Yeah, and they're going to be serious in these recruitments. They're not going to win every recruitment against LSU, but they're going to be serious in these recruitments. And then the other factor is, if you don't get Leavitt, that's a lot of money you're dedicating towards one guy. That, let's say you go after a Deuce Knight, you go after someone, you're not going to have to put all of that on your quarterback. You can get a less expensive quarterback, and then you can maybe get some other position players with that extra money that bolsters your roster.
Yeah, it's fun playing the quarterback game because people know the names like Rayola and Lagway, and everybody has their preferences. We have not reached that stage yet, but that's a decent start. Just briefly going to mention that Ashton Daniels is visiting Florida State today. I think is that visit tomorrow to Kentucky? I don't have all my ducks in a row, admittedly. Yeah, another former Auburn quarterback who put up some numbers once Hugh Freeze was fired, did all right at Stanford. He seems in that sort of, if you want to have a competition option, Daniels would be in there. And then they also had the Elon quarterback who was up for FCS Freshman of the Year. That would be a fun backup to have, because that's the other part about quarterback. You got to have multiple. They have one on the roster right now. You need bodies.
And Landon Clark, the Elon quarterback you mentioned, he put up some good stats at Elon, some pretty great stats at Elon, and he told me right before the visit, he's not scared of the competition. He's a guy I think that would, you'd be able to bring in no matter who you bring in at quarterback, and and he's ready to compete. So that's at least somewhat encouraging there.
So we went 15 minutes and we've only talked about quarterback. I guess we can get a little bit more rapid fire with our big board. You mentioned Price. Let's just start with the offensive line. Tyree Adams, I think, is the biggest fish at offensive tackle out there. He's currently on a visit to Texas A&M. Probably not going to hear any news about this recruitment until tomorrow, I would imagine. But it seems like it's Kentucky or Texas A&M, and you know, you're fishing with the big boys. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a recruitment. Like, I know in the portal, everyone's like, okay, if a guy doesn't commit on his visit, he's gone. But this is one that I think we've known for a little while. He was definitely going to visit Kentucky and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And this was never expected to be all right, he hops off his visit and he signs his letter of intent. He's going to go through the process, and I mean, maybe after Texas A&M, he has enough information to decide between the two schools, but there are a lot of high-level schools pushing for him, and it wouldn't even surprise me to see him take more visits after A&M.
Ori Williams was a name that he got some starts when Adams got hurt. Adams, I think, had season-ending shoulder surgery. He's been reported to have a visit scheduled with Kentucky. That's kind of up in the air. I think it's interesting that there's two Alabama offensive tackles. Where Pete Nako said that Kentucky's going to watch with Wilkin Formby, who started some games at right tackle and also at guard. And then we learned yesterday, too, that Elias Olenin, who has been a reserve for Alabama, big-time high school recruit, but hasn't played much. He was visiting campus as well. Another big body who's spent some time in the SEC. I think the most interesting update of them all, though, might end up being the best of them all. And that was who you referred to earlier, Jacob. It's Xavier Chaplin.
Yes. Yeah, that one was I had a lot of questions about that because we were told that there's a good chance he was going to visit on that first day when the portal opened on Friday, and then it was just kind of radio silence from there. Nobody had heard anything about Chaplin, and there were no real updates. And I reached out to some sources today who said, yeah, he's still not in the portal. So that's why he hasn't visited. That's why we haven't heard anything. I've heard some issues with teams holding players from entering. I'm not sure that's 100% the case here, but there's a reason why he hasn't entered. And I still expect Kentucky to go after him when he enters the portal. But until then, it's just we're in a holding pattern.
Yeah, and it strikes me as one of those where they're trying to do the thing to convince him to come back before doing the Isaac Brown thing, where they officially enter, and then you have to kind of recruit them back. It sounds like they're trying to recruit him back before he ever bolts. But he's one of those guys that, I mean, he started for 2 years at Virginia Tech, and when he got to Auburn, like when they were talking the preseason about Auburn having its best offensive line in 15 years or something like that, Chaplin was a big reason why, because he's a bona fide NFL talent. So that would be a significant one if Kentucky is able to get in on those sweepstakes. It seems like they are, but, portal man, it's weird.
Yeah, you can only go after the guys in the portal, and until they're in there, there's nothing you can really do.
We'll have all of these up on I'm working on a big board for the main site, and it's going to be one of those that as soon as I post it, there's going to be like 10 other names to add to it. So let's move to receiver. Also, tight end, they probably won't get anybody until the end. I mean, they've got 4 as far as we're concerned. Willie Rodriguez hasn't announced anything, but that'll be add a body if you feel like you need to add a body, but I'm not really expecting much there. Receiver is interesting because it's one of those where they have players, Jacob, but I feel like they're trying to be very calculated. And it's clear that DeAndre Moore is probably their top target. And it's, he's been the guy his whole life, right? He was a blue chip guy out of California, initially committed to play for Louisville, goes to Texas, plays as a true freshman. He's their second best receiver for most of his time there. But you know what? Kentucky got him on campus first, right? Ohio State's in the mix, Louisville, there's a couple others. But that feels like a kind of a receiver recruitment where it's like, you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens.
and that's one where the connections matter.
Yes.
I mean, he was committed to Louisville out of high school, and he bumped his Ole Miss visit to get to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was on the visit at the same time as Sam Leavitt and C.J. Baxter, the Texas running back. And he and C.J. are really close. So and he likes the idea of playing with Leavitt. So all three of those recruitments, you kind of feel like are blended together a little bit, and one could affect the others.
Yeah. Which, not to jump to running back, but I still feel pretty good about where Kentucky stands with C.J. Baxter, who was the former #1 running back in the portal. Yes, he scheduled another visit to Colorado, but did you see that Colorado has already taken 2 portal running backs?
Yeah, that's certainly interesting. I think that this could be a little bit of an NIL game from the agency of, hey, you got it. Like, it always helps your NIL value to take more than one visit.
Yes.
And I know that Baxter is pretty coveted. I think that his NIL numbers are pretty high. So adding another visit in there certainly does not help, or certainly does not hurt his leverage in these negotiations.
As for a few other wide receivers, Tony Diaz is a player we reported about. He's one of those lower level guys who had a ton of production, right? I mean, he was freshman, Southland Conference Freshman of the Year at UTRGV, which, come on, Rio Grande Valley. Just go by Rio Grande Valley, right? Like, you don't need the UT beforehand. It just, make it easier on all of us.
I like people on the KS board trying to guess what that stood for. We got some pretty interesting guesses over there.
I think it's so. Joe Price was the one who offered him. He's from San Marcos. He went to the same high school as Ori Williams. They were on the same team together, the LSU offensive tackle, but incredibly productive. So like that's kind of an interesting guy that doesn't have as much pop as a guy like DeAndre Moore or Malcolm Simmons, who were blue chip targets, right? Simmons was a top 200 guy that really flashed later on at Auburn. Arkansas got the first visit for Simmons, but he should be on campus at some point this week. Jacob, that feels like one we're going to find out when he shows up that he's here.
Yeah, that definitely feels like a quiet one. I know that they've even in high school. I remember following this kid, and he liked to move things very quietly. So, yeah, Arkansas first visit, and I think we'll have to wait and see when Kentucky gets him on campus.
Another quiet one too is Darrell Gill, who had 500 receiving yards in each of his last 2 seasons at Syracuse. Big guy, 6'3". That's one it's been kept quiet, but we are watching closely. We're watching very closely. Jace Brown is the opposite. He has not been quiet about it. There's been a lot of reports about his whereabouts. Kentucky was listed among the early schools that was expected to get a visit, but as of Sunday evening, he has not locked one in. He went to Ole Miss, and I think Georgia, Auburn are also up there for the Kansas State transfer.
That sounds right.
Yep. So those are some names. Along with Baxter, there's an Oklahoma guy who redshirted this year. That feels like a real possibility because, I mean, Wilcox is out. Dowdell is out. They're going to need some bodies. That feels like a real possibility if he feels like he can be at least a second option. He redshirted to get an extra year. And the other one is the Delaware State kid who had like 10 yards per carry. So, yeah. Admittedly, Jacob, when I saw Delaware State, I got it confused with Delaware, the Blue Hens. But the Blue Hens different than are they the Red Hornets, the Green Hornets?
Let's see, Delaware State.
I think
they're the Hornets.
Just regular Hornets, no color designation?
They wear red, so you can call them the Red Hornets.
I'll call them the Red Hornets then. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned a few names there. Javante Barnes, I think that one's interesting. The Oklahoma running back, because he's visiting at the same time as one of his teammates, defensive lineman. Where is this? Marcus Strong.
Yes.
Who I think that's a really interesting one in my eyes. I think he could be a really good player. His stats don't pop off the page, but I think that in Kentucky's system he could be pretty intriguing. And I think anytime you have 2 teammates on campus together, you got to factor that in. And I'm assuming that there's a reason they're visiting at the same time.
Yep. I can't say the Florida guy's name on the defensive line. I just want to call him Michel, like from Dodgeball. No idea. Michel Brown. It's one of those where, like, sometimes you get the initial stuff and then you just don't hear anything, and that's kind of where we are on him. But he was an enormous player for Florida the last couple of years. That would be nice if Jay Bateman can use those old Florida connects. Hunter Osborne has been on campus, though. He's a Virginia defensive tackle. And then we also learned that Harkless, who is a former Douglas kid, played at Purdue, right? Like, logged some serious minutes. They need some big body kind of nose guard types. I know they're more of a 4-down front, but you shade the center quite a bit in odd fronts. So they need some big body types. Harkless fits that MO. That could be I know Louisville's in on DeAndre Moore as well as Kentucky. It feels like Harkless is going to be another one of those Kentucky-Louisville portal battles.
Yeah, one guy I'll talk about, the Florida defensive lineman whose name we'll figure out later. He's finishing up, I believe, his Ole Miss visit today, and there's just a lot of talk that Ole Miss is the spot there. So I'll wait and see if he gets out of that Ole Miss visit, then we can see what's up with Kentucky. But right now, I think
you're putting a pencil, no, not a Sharpie, but a pencil through Michel. See, we don't even need to learn his name, Polacheck.
It's all you. You can say it for me. I'm not butchering that one.
There's a Norman and a Morgan. Jordan Norman was at Tulane. He's an edge type, and Kamaran Morgan, another edge type. Frankly, I'll be honest, I don't know how Bateman's going to juggle the edge position with where we're at, but at least Kentucky's in on some, and they have O'Berry. I just wonder how much of a priority those guys are going to be, because Souls is only one so far that has departed. I guess Jacob Smith technically, but you feel like you have some good quality young pieces in there. Sam Green's announced his return. So that's something to keep an eye on.
I think the Norman one is going to be tough because he's coming from Tulane, and John Summerall wants him over at Florida. So
yeah, probably spend a lot of money to get him there. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you have a coach switching schools and a guy enters the portal, if that coach is recruiting that guy, you're usually picking them as a favorite. So
and you go back to what you said about Baxter. It's always good to have another school as a place you could visit. You know, like, it's just, even if it does feel like a slam dunk one way or another. It would be nice if Kentucky get a slam dunk with Robert Woodyard. There aren't a whole lot of linebacker targets that we know of, and I think it's because Tavian Wallace is one that is not going to scare off Woodyard, if that makes sense. Because this feels like they're kind of top guys. You think that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, if they thought he was going to scare off Woodyard, they probably wouldn't have posted him the same day. So I think I don't think that's one to scare him off, and I think that he's probably their top target right now at linebacker. Yeah.
I have an update for the YouTube chat. Because somebody was asking when we're going to change our header. There may be a prototype. So breaking news that you don't really care about. Yeah.
I care about that. I didn't know that.
All right, let's wrap things up in the secondary. And there will be more names. Like, there could be something there with Sean Alexander's nephew, Austin Alexander. We're talking about them all on KS Board. If you aren't on KSR Plus, like, Jacob Polacheck, he's burning up his phone, right? He's going to break his phone. The least you can do is to sign up for KSR Plus, 50% off an annual subscription now. There's 800 of you out there watching right now. You need to be on KSR Plus for all the intel as it happens. KS Board eats first, and Polacheck is feeding them all sorts of intel, all sorts of scoops of ice cream. So please sign up. We'll have plenty of other names that are a little bit more under the radar. But I think that the two remaining big ones that we have to discuss, one of which is the Texas A&M transfer Kobe Sellers, and the other one is Florida transfer Jordan Castell. I'm just going to start with Castell. This could be like you don't celebrate recruiting classes based on safety wins, But like this would just it made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. He's a 3-year SEC starter at Florida. That's ain't no chump, right? Like that is a guy that has seen it all, and that is a position that requires you to see it all to be good. And you've got an experienced guy in Ty Bryant. You just lost Cam Dooley. So let's make the trade official. Get Castell over. He was with Bateman the first go around. This is a guy who's plug and play, like could be an all SEC sort of starter for you as soon as he steps on campus. Let's bring him on in. Let's get it done. I know Ole Miss got the first visit, and the last one.
LSU on January 8th is
okay.
So he's got Kentucky right in the middle there today. And it's not often that you see guys actually cut their list in the portal, but he's cut his list. Those are the 3 schools. You don't expect any other schools to jump in the mix. So if you're Kentucky, you know who you have to beat in this recruitment. It's LSU and Ole Miss. You get them on campus today and then see what you can do. And
this just, again, I know that we got really into the weeds with what we were discussing. We didn't get into punters. Sorry for those who were desperate for punter talk.
They had a long snapper on the first day come and visit. Grayson Curtis from New Mexico State, 6'1", 230 pounds.
See, there we go. Paul, we got you covered on it all. But I think the big picture thing you should glean from all of this is just that, like, Kentucky isn't coming here to take scraps. Like they're sitting at the big kids table for a lot of these recruitments, and they got a ton of big names in early. And now Will Stone's got another playoff game to play, but they're still hosting guys on campus. 5 commitments to start. You probably won't see the wave that we saw on Sunday into early Monday morning, but there will be. If it feels like we're just going to be getting the kind of what's the salt guy, the sprinkles throughout the week, we're going to be getting lots of those. So,
yeah, this stuff, it comes in waves. You're going to get just a consistent line of guys coming in, and there's a lot of guys that we're watching right now that could commit today or tomorrow.
You got any? Are you ready to put your name on it? You ready to maybe not an RPM prediction, maybe an HCTB prediction?
I will say you mentioned a guy. I'm not ready to put the RPM in, but Kobe Sellers, the cornerback from Texas A&M, that's one that I'm really watching because I talked to him after his Kentucky visit, and he said, yeah, I got no other visits planned. I'm going home. There's some other schools he's looking at, so we'll see if he ends up setting those visits. But usually with these transfer portal guys, they're going campus on one school, straight to another school decision. So to get him to go home after the visit is usually a good sign.
Something we'll be keeping a close eye on. I like where Kentucky sits with Baxter. I ultimately think they'll end up getting that one home. So that's your little nuggets to wrap up this show. Yeah, you got any? Why don't you leave us with some? You got any final thoughts? Any words of wisdom for us, Jacob? You've got a lot of wise words.
And are you just trying to get me to say be ready? Is that what this is?
No, well, I think I'm just proud of myself because I'm really good. Like I love bad dad humor, and we have a similar sense of humor. But I've gotten you twice in the last 24 hours. Like I got you with a 6'7" and a 230, which just
the 230 one. I laughed at that one. I was not upset. The 6'7" one, I should have known. That one
See, that just shows Jacob's dedication to the portal grind, okay? That the jokes that he would normally like, it's just when he's getting got
12:15 at night. I was very tired at the time after a night of being up at 3 a.m. posting random stories. So I have not gotten much sleep. I'm a little delirious, so you can get some jokes past me.
Okay. Well, we're burning the midnight oil. I need to go get some more coffee.
Subscribe to KSR Plus.
Do it right now.